This is more important than progressive overload. I'm going to give you my 4-step framework for building even your most stubborn muscle group. And I'm qualified to talk about this because since birth, I have been a peg leg man. I have had the skinniest, tiniest legs on planet Earth. My upper body was always pretty decent. I always had a little bit of baseline muscle. I had a bicep, and in school I used to be like, "Whoa, check this out!" And everyone was like, "Whoa, Ollie's got the cool biceps." But my lower body lagged behind so badly. Right, the whole way through my life, as a kid, it's normal to have the stick thin legs, but then at a certain age, the quads start coming in. Mine just never did. The only thing that happened with my legs is they got hairy, like seriously hairy, like hairy to the point where I used to wear jeans and the hairs used to stick through the jeans, right? And so not only were my legs like abnormally skinny, they're also abnormally hairy. And it led to a lot of teasing because people were like, "Oh, you look like the goat from Narnia." And it's so accurate. I don't know why this is turned on. 1 second. There we go. Yeah, Tumnus. I've said Thomas in the past, and people have corrected me and told me it's Tumnus. I have no idea. But the guy with the goat legs, that was me growing up. Super skinny legs, super hairy. They stuck out like a sore thumb. I used to get teased for them. People were like, "Ollie, I thought you trained legs 3 days a week," and I did, but they just didn't grow. Okay, and they were one of the reasons why I started going to the gym because I was pretty okay with my upper body. I was like, cool, I've got abs, decent, whatever. But my legs are so skinny and I hated it. I wanted to see my legs grow more than anything. I wanted to see like veins on my quads. I wanted to see every head of my quad separately. I wanted to be able to tense it. I wanted to be able to like tense my hamstring and feel the muscle there because I could feel it on my upper body. But when I was looking at my legs, I was like, there is nothing there. And I want to grow them more than anything. I don't want to look top heavy. I don't like this look. And I was desperate to grow them because at the time, I was so insecure about how skinny they were, right? I used to play rugby, and the guys that I used to play rugby with were like, "Ollie, I could snap both of your legs with one tackle." And they were spot on because my legs were just small, frail, weak. And I was training them 3 times a week. I was desperate to grow them, but they just didn't grow. And to make them look wider, I used to wear like rugby socks underneath my jeans. I used to like pull the socks up and then put my jeans on top of that to try and make them look wider because I hated how skinny they were. I didn't like wearing shorts. Like I'd try and avoid wearing shorts for PE lessons because I didn't want people to see my legs. I hated them. And I even went through, I'm not sure if I can say this, sorry, actually. Yeah, I went through this weird phase of like trying to get attention away from them. So I went through this phase of like shaving them, thinking, right, my legs are hairier than everybody else's. They were my biggest insecurity. I hated them. I wish they were somebody else's. Like I wish that I didn't have them. I wish I just had a normal set of legs. But anyway, I was trying to pull attention away from them. And as like a 18-year-old, I was like, or 17-year-old, I was like, right, what's the smart thing to do here? They stand out because they're hairy. What should we do? I tell you what we should do. We should shave them. Anyway, so I shaved half my legs. And I got halfway through and realized that I've made a fucking dire mistake. So then I just lived the next like 2 weeks with half shaved legs where, from my hips down to my knees were shaved, but my calves were still hairy. So it looked like I was just wearing constant shin pads. And it's probably one of the most embarrassing things I've ever done, and I've never admitted it to anybody except my email list. So I hope you guys are appreciating this. But that just goes to show how insecure I was about my legs. Like I hated them. I wanted nothing more than to have the attention pulled away from them, or just to make them bigger. Just have big legs. Just have legs that I could tense, could see the veins on, could see the quads. They were muscly. People were like, yeah, that kind of fits in with his physique. Not like, oh my God, he does not train legs. He is one of those gym cretins. Like I just didn't want that. And I used to think about them day in, day night. How do I grow them? What do I need to do? What do I need to do differently in the gym? What am I missing out on? Because I was training them 3 times a week, training my quads 3 times a week. I was back squatting, I was leg extensioning, I was doing everything. I was doing hundreds of sets. I was spending hours up there, doing as many sets as I possibly could, doing RDLs, doing hamstring curls, pushing as hard as I could, adding reps every single week, and nothing. Literally nothing. And it got to the point where up until 2 years into my lifting journey, I was just taking the advice of lift heavier. I was asking all of the guys around, everybody that had big legs. I was like, what do you do in the gym? What are you doing that's different to me? What are you doing that I'm not? And they were like, oh, you just need to lift heavier. So I was literally just trying to add more and more and more weight. I was back squatting 60 kilos, up to 70, up to 80. I was never feeling my quads working. But I was just adamant that I just needed to lift heavier. I did that with all of the equipment that I had access to at home. And then I started thinking, or I started seeing everybody on Instagram. And I remember looking at Snapchat and there was like crazy leg workout, copy this. And I was like, okay, I'll do this. I was on the train home from school, scrolling through Snapchat, and you'd see people using like a hack squat. And I'm like, oh, that would fix everything. I just need a hack squat. I just need a hack squat. I just need a machine that I can get into and nothing else matters. All I have to do is go up and down. At the moment, I'm back squatting. My back hurts. Like I'm not feeling it in my quads. My knees ache. It's just not working my quads. I need a hack squat. I need a machine like that. I need a leg press or a hack squat. I'm not growing because of the equipment is the conclusion that I came to after 2 years. Okay, I'm not growing because of the equipment. So what happened the week after that was the UK got plunged into a lockdown. Everywhere got shut down. And I was like, Dad, if I'm training from home for the next 2 years or however long this is going to last, I need a hack squat. So we actually not broke the lockdown rules, but we used our hour of exercise to go and pick up a hack squat off Facebook Marketplace. And we crossed the border using like high-vis jackets, pretending that we were like key workers. Obviously, we didn't interact with anybody, promise. And we went on, I was on Facebook Marketplace. I paid £500 for a hack squat. And we crossed the border and we came straight back. And then I got it piece by piece. I disassembled it, took it up to my attic, and I put it in a little tiny room. And I was like, right, now that I've got the hack squat, this is going to solve all of my problems. All I need to do is on this machine, I put on like 80 kilos the first time and I did like 10 reps and I was like, whoa, that's quite heavy. Right. If I can go and put all of the weight in this attic on that machine and do 10 reps, I will have big quads. That is what I had in my head. I was like, lift heavier, bigger quads. And I heard people saying it. I was like, yeah, if you can have like 150 kilos on a hack squat, you will have big legs. You will have big quads. I was like, okay, I can do that. So every single week. First week, 80 kilos, did my 10 reps, easy. Week after, 85, 10 reps, got there. Next week, 2.5. Okay, the week after that, and then I gradually worked my way up to 90, 100, 120. And then I started having to put like a boxing bag on top to add weight to get it to 160 and using all of the plates I had in my little attic. But I got it. And about a year later, 2 years later, I'd been through my bulking phase by this point. I was up at 95 kilos. Okay, 95 kilos. I'd gone from 70 to 95. I was on this hack squat and I was like, today is the day. We're making it happen. And I put 160 kilos on. I was in my attic, okay? And I did 1 rep, 2 rep, 5, got to 5, got to 6, got to 7. And then I had to scream out the last rep. And I was like literally at failure, but I did not give in because I was adamant in my head. When I can do 10 reps of 160 kilos, I will have big legs. And on my last rep, I screamed so loud that the Velux window was open to let air in. I screamed so loud on the last rep that I then, once I finished the set, I popped my head out the window and there's a park near my house. All of the kids in the park about half a mile away were all stopped their game of football going, trying to spot where the scream came from. Anyway, that's a side tangent. But I did it. 160 kilos, 10 reps. I got the 10th rep and I was like, damn right. But for the last 2 years, every single time that I'd finished a set on that hack squat, I got off thinking, my quads aren't actually working here. My quads aren't actually doing the work. It's just my knees that hurt. My quads aren't actually feeling this, right? My quads aren't actually feeling like they're doing the work. They kind of hurt a little bit, but it's mostly my knees. And then the day after, they never get DOMs. All of my other muscle groups get DOMs, they get sore. My quads can barely feel it. Like, what is going on? And lo and behold, after 2 years of going from 80 kilos all the way up to 160, grafting every single week, adding an extra rep, being absolutely on it with this hack squat, my quads are barely grown. My legs had barely grown. And I was thinking to myself, damn, you have some shit genetics. I was like, you're cooked. I was looking at myself in the mirror going, right, if I've increased my body weight from 70 to 95 and my legs have still barely grown, I have the trashiest genetics on planet Earth. There's nothing else that can fix me here. I'm adding weight. I'm lifting heavier. I've bought the equipment. It's not the equipment anymore. I'm training with progressive overload. I'm logging my lifts. I'm going to failure. I'm pushing as hard as I can. What am I missing? Is it really my genetics? And after 2 years, I was like, right, it has to be my genetics. But then I started questioning, like, was just lifting heavier for the sake of it actually what I needed to do? And during this period, I was starting to play around with some different things in the gym, starting to think about things differently and trying to figure out how to get my quads to actually work instead of just my knees hurting. So I was doing things like BFR wrapping the top of my quad. So I was getting 2 extra knee wraps and tightening them around the top of my quad to blood flow restrict my quad so that it would pump full of blood, so that on every rep, like my quads would be full of blood, and see if that could help. And it was helping a little bit and I was feeling my quads a little bit more, but like it wasn't the answer. And around about this period, or actually a year after this period, I carried on with that same technique the whole way through my first prep, the whole way through my first bodybuilding prep. And on stage, I competed and the judges were like, bro, your lats were amazing. You got skinned. You were really good. your legs are just a bit small. And I was like, I know. I'm trying everything to grow them. I know they're bad. And as soon as I finished that prep, I was like, shit, I need to find a better way to grow my legs and I need to do it quicker. I need to find a way of growing them quicker as well. So the year after that prep, or actually in the 6 month after that prep, where I was recovering from that prep, I kept on seeing this guy on Instagram that was training in a way that I'd just never seen before and I didn't recognize. And I was still very much set in my ways of, right, if I need big quads, I just need to lift heavier. 160 wasn't enough. Obviously, I need to just get to 200. Then I will have big quads. And I kept on seeing this guy's videos pop up on Instagram, and he was using a hack squat with his feet like down at the bottom, going really slow. His eccentrics were like 5 seconds long. He was pausing at the bottom, and he was only using like a plate per side, but he had the whammest legs I'd ever seen. And I did a bit of stalking. I was like, who the fuck is this guy? World champion natural bodybuilder. Bro, what is he doing? He must be rehabbing an injury or something to be hack squatting like that. Why is he doing that? I kept on seeing his videos. Every time I was like, no, he's just a genetic freak. But then I could see his progress over the years. I looked back and I was like, whoa, he wasn't always this jacked. He's actually built a load of muscle. And he's doing this weird technique on the hack squat where it's really slow, controlled. He's only using a plate per side. Like, I'm lifting more than him. Why are his legs bigger than mine? What is going on here? And it started to challenge me mentally. I was like, why is he growing so much muscle when he's not lifting heavier? He's not following the same rule book that I'm following. And I started reaching out to him, asking him about it. And he was like, yeah, so I'm using way less load, but I'm just chasing the stimulus here. I'm just trying to get my quads to really work. And when they're the things that are actually working, they will grow. And I went, whoa. For the last 4 years of lifting, I literally hadn't felt my quads being the thing that was failing. On a squat pattern, they were just never the thing that actually failed. They were never the thing that gave way. It was always my knees, it was always my lower back, it was always my hips, it was always something else, but not my quads. I couldn't get them to work. So anyway, this guy, his name's Dirk Emmerich, and he is my current coach. I hired him just over a year ago after having a conversation with him and hearing about this weird technique that he was doing. I was like, right, sign me up, I'm interested. But I was still nervous about it because I was like, I feel weird using so much less load on the hack squat. I feel weird using so much less load on my leg presses, on my squat patterns. I was used to leg pressing like 200 kilos, hack squatting like 100, 120, 140, and going as heavy as I could, but just getting the weight up and down, my feet mid-play, all very stable. And he said, right, what we're going to do is these 4 things. And he coached me through this, but these 4 things have changed my training, especially when it comes to a stubborn muscle group, completely. Like my legs, my quads in this last year of working with Dirk have grown 10 centimeters and they are catching up to the rest of my physique, which I never thought was possible. I always thought I had shit genetics. I'm never going to be able to grow my quads. They're always going to be a weak lagging part. In the last 12 months, they have absolutely exploded. They are my quickest growing body part. And it's all because of these changes that I've made. And the main thing that me and Dirk kind of agree on is there is no point in you progressively overloading or lifting heavier or getting more reps when it isn't actually your target muscle doing the work. So think about that sentence again and hear that again because it is so fundamental. There is no point in you progressive overloading. There is no point in you lifting heavier or getting more reps if it isn't your target muscle doing the work. Because for 4 years, I was hammering away on that hack squat again and again and again, doing sets week after week, lifting heavier, getting more weight, getting more reps, pushing harder, going to failure. But I was never actually feeling my quads work. But not just feeling my quads work, like afterwards, my knees would hurt, my quads were barely touched. During the actual set, they weren't being used that much. I don't know what it was. It was just something else that was taking over. The day after, I would never get sore. And for 4 years, they did not grow. They barely grew at all. So unless it's your target muscle that's doing the work, don't progressively overload, right? Get your target muscle working, put that target muscle up to the fire, and then progressively overload, even if it means that you're using a quarter, an eighth of the weight, right? So here are the 4 things that Dirk coached me on and got me doing within my training that has exploded my quads literally by 10 centimeters in the last year. Number 1, eccentrics. I was already controlling my eccentrics quite well, but taking complete ownership of the negative portion of a lift is so essential. That is where the muscle is really getting stretched, okay? That is where the muscle is really getting tested and all the fibers are getting stretched. Like that is where the growth is going to happen. And the first thing that Dirk got me to do was count 3 seconds on the eccentrics of all of my squat patterns. So on a hack squat at the top, now I go 1, 2, 3, pause at the bottom. Yeah, so a 3-second eccentric. And this changes so much about the stimulus you get from that movement. Because what I used to do was just go up, down, and if I got the rep, that's all that matters. Up, down, up, down. I was using momentum. I wasn't consciously avoiding the weight with my quads. On the way down, I wasn't actively pressing against the plate, trying to get my quad to stretch. I was just going down, up, down, up. Do you know what I mean? I was just going down, up, and I wasn't squeezing as much growth out that I possibly could. So number one is eccentrics. Slow them the fuck down and take control. If at any point you don't feel in control of that movement, go slower. Simple as that, okay? People always ask me, right, how slowly do I actually need to go on the eccentrics then? As long as you are in complete control and I could snap my fingers while you're doing the rep and you could pause it there, I'm happy. If you can't do that, slow it down. Simple as. Number two is the pause at the bottom, right? I like thinking about this in the sense of, imagine you've got an elastic band and that is your quad. Your quad is an elastic band. On the way down, you're stretching the elastic band. On the way back up, you're contracting the elastic band, okay? It's just one big elastic band. The eccentrics are important because obviously if you want to, test this elastic band and make little tears appear, then you need to stretch it. You're not going to be able to do that by squishing it. You need to stretch it, right? The pauses come in. Imagine there's two elastic bands that you're stretching, not one. One of them is your tendons and one of them is the muscle itself. On the way down, you're stretching both of these equally, right? So your patella tendon, the tendon, all the little ligaments, all the little things are being stretched as well. And then when you get down to the bottom, if you pause there and you pause there for a good second or 2 seconds, then the tendons can't store the elastic energy. They can't hold on to it because, you've come down, you've filled them with it. If you pause, they then dissipate. They then relax, and then it's your quad that can actually help you get back up. The best example of this is, when you're doing calf raises, how heavy can you go if you're just bouncing up and down? It's almost unlimited. You can do like unbelievable amounts of loads because your Achilles tendon is incredible at storing elastic energy and then just bouncing you back up. It's incredible at doing this, right? So you could do that all day long and not really use your calf. It's just your Achilles going, oh, boing, 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 boing. But if you pause at the bottom for a good 2 seconds, the Achilles discharges, releases all of its elastic potential energy, and then it's your calf, your gastroc that actually has to do the work. So for me, the bottom of my hack squats, I started pausing for 2 seconds, giving that patella tendon complete time to discharge, let go of anything that it was holding on to, and actually make it my quads that were pushing me back up. Unbelievable the stimulus that gave me in the gym, and that is one of the biggest changes that I made within all of my squat patterns that built ridiculous amounts of muscle ridiculously quickly for my quads. So that's number two. Number three is adjusting your form, right? We are bodybuilders. We are people that are trying to grow muscle. We are not trying to lift the heaviest load that we can. If anything, we want to do the opposite. We want to make these exercises as hard as we possibly can for that target muscle, even if it means you have to reduce the load by 200 times. Even if you have to go down to literally zero load, if you're making it infinitely harder for your target muscle, that's gonna cause more growth. So the example here is when I first started working with Dirk, my feet were mid-plate on the hack squat. I was bouncing up and down and I wasn't really feeling my quads. What he told me to do was creep my feet gradually, week by week, the whole way down to the bottom of the plate and have them hanging off the bottom of the plate and even letting my heels come up off the bottom. Now, what this did is it made me a little bit weaker because I wasn't now able to use my glutes at all. Like the main movement that was happening was knee flexion. So in other words, my calf was getting really close to my hamstring, but I couldn't use my glutes at all because my heels were coming off the platform. And secondly, by letting my heels come up, it put me onto my toes, which biased my quads even more. And it again got that angle in between my calf and my hamstring even smaller. So I changed my form and I had to use way less load. I'm now using like a plate and a half on the hack squat, but I was using my target muscle so much more accurately. It was no longer just a squat pattern where I was kind of using my quads, using a lot of my knees, and my glutes were getting involved as well. It is just my quads that are being toasted. So on whichever exercise you want to apply this to, adjust your form to make it the target muscle you're trying to grow. That is what's under fire. Whatever changes you make that puts that under more fire, you're onto a winner. Always make that choice. And the final one was intensity. Right? I used to actually get to the point where I couldn't push another rep on the hack squat because my knees were hurting and they would give way before my quads. It got to the point where I was on my 10th rep and I couldn't move it anymore because my knees were crying, not my quads. My quads were fine. They had another 10 reps in them, but my knees felt like they were going to pop and give way. and I couldn't do any more reps because of that. Now that I've adjusted my eccentrics, my pauses, and my form to lower feet, slowly on the way down, pause at the bottom, it's only my quads that are working, and the intensity that I can hit that actual muscle group with is so much higher. So I'm training to failure now, and even into some partials on these squat patterns where it's actually my quads that are failing, not my knees. So let's recap. Number 1, eccentrics. Count a 3-second tempo on the way down on every single one of your squat patterns. This will improve your stimulus monumentally because it will actually make you in control of that movement and stretch that muscle out properly rather than just using momentum on the way down. Secondly, pause at the bottom. The tendons around that muscle are going to be getting stretched as well on the way down. If you pause at the bottom, it gives them a chance to discharge, dump all of that elastic potential energy, and gives you the chance to then push back up using your target muscles, not those tendons around it. Number 3 is adjusting your form. If you can adjust your form to make it more specific for the target muscle you're trying to hit, always make that choice. For me, I brought my feet right down to the bottom of the plate on a hack squat and leg press, let my heels come up, and the stimulus I get from this compared to how I used to do hack squats with my feet mid-plate is absolutely ridiculous, and my quads have grown a load. And finally, intensity. Once you're doing these things, there is no excuse for you not to be going extremely close to failure and taking reps that are really slow and get really hard. Now that you're using just your target muscle as well, if you're training at a higher intensity, that combination of actually isolating the target muscle properly and training really, really hard is going to grow that muscle quicker than ever before. If, by the way, you want an exact training program from me and you want my advice on taking you through this process step by step, teaching you how to adjust these exercises to get more out of them and how to actually attack different stubborn muscle groups as well. So say, for example, you've got a stubborn chest, stubborn legs like me, or stubborn lats, then you need to go and get involved in my 30-day bulking challenge, because inside there, you're going to be able to choose specific programs for bringing up your chest, specific training programs for bringing up your lats, specific training programs for bringing up your legs, and you're going to have access to me to ask me questions as well for any other questions that you've got about how to get the most stimulus out of your training. So go and hit the top link in the bio, not in the bio, in the caption, and go and join my 30-day bulking challenge. The first 2 weeks are completely free in there, by the way. And I hope you've enjoyed this week's video. If you have any questions about it, please drop it below in the comments and I'll come in and answer. But I hope you've enjoyed this, and thank you so much for listening until the end. Do not forget to subscribe to my channel for more hard gainer tips on getting jacked.